Hello, welcome back. Week 7 of Unpicked, the show that likes to chat about everything that happened in the episodes of The Sewing Bee. And we're at week 7, Art Week. Before we go any further, do I look like a work of art in this unfinished shirt?
Well, you've certainly chosen a certain type of fabric there, haven't you? So I'd call
Well,
it more of a grandad shirt.
it's you can throw a slipper at me, Ting, because it's unfinished. I've got
Well,
I've got
yes.
I've got no collar on, but do you want to look at my placket?
Well, wouldn't be the first time.
There's
Oh, very nice.
pride in my
I see we've
placket.
gone for the look where it doesn't cover your full arm.
Absolutely. You know, me and my long arms. Cheek.
The whole point
So
of making your own stuff is so that you can make
I
it
know,
fit.
I know. It's a bit more work though, isn't it? But I
Uh,
spent all day Sunday. I'm inspired. The bee has been brilliant this year, hasn't it? Other than last week, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And so inspired. I've had my sewing stuff out all on the table. Spent all day Sunday sewing this. Didn't get anywhere with it, finishing wise. Spent all day Monday on it. Oh my God. How do they do it in 4.5 hours, Ting?
so you're not sending your application off for next year yet, then?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't get anywhere near it. And that's what's so nice about doing the makes as we watch the sewing bee. It just reinforces it. It reminds us how amazing these sewers are and how it's a completely different skill, isn't it? Sewing for the sewing bee. The time element is a different factor. And I've still got the collar to do, but you think of, well, we'll talk about it in a little while, what they had to do in 4.5 hours for that baby dress doll. It's just phenomenal. But it was just nice to get the sewing machine out and, yeah, a little bit of check there. I don't know about the collar. I think I'm now going to leave that off. Have you got any other ideas for what I could do instead?
Well, if you're going to leave it off, you need to even up those two
Oh,
topics.
well, do some sort of.
Quite,
I know
quite match up.
on the. It's like I could go for a granddad style collar, couldn't
Yeah,
I? What?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it would go with that fabric, wouldn't it? That sort of color.
God, just get you talking about the fabric. You're turning into Esme now, aren't you?
As long as the sewing's good, that's all that matters. I can't
Okay.
criticise the colour, can I?
I'm going to leave it on because it'll just be fun for people to watch. And go, what on
As
earth's
it
he
slowly
wearing?
comes apart.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a quick look at the comments last week. Oh my, and didn't you come out with comments galore?
I
All
did see a
one
few, yeah.
Wonderful. Some lovely comments about the adaptive challenge. Let's take a look at Drewby. I like Children's Week, and the adaptive clothing concept was fantastic and new to me, as it was to me too. I'd never heard of it before, so it was great to see that highlighted. And then another one from Wendy. I don't like Children's Week, so we get chalk and cheese there. But for next year, maybe they could replace it with Adaptive Fashion Week. This has more scope, and then we don't have the usual fancy dress outfits. I think that's a very good point, wouldn't you say, Ting?
Yeah.
And then we've got, as I have a grandson with special needs, I cheered the theme of adaptive clothing. Trying to get a trouser leg down over a leg splint is not easy. And so for comfort, the choice is always shapeless track pants. Adaptive clothing should be available for all, children and adults alike. Wonderful. Yeah, so really, really nice to see all those comments there about adaptive clothing. Also, very nice to see a wonderful comment from Dan. Yes, to look over the top thing. I won't read it all out. You can see it on the screen, but it's the bit at the beginning that I thought would be really interesting because, yes, we do moan and we do criticise at certain aspects, but this might shed a bit of light. Hey, thought I'd shed a little light on Kids Week. We do know the time frame before filming, and when I had practice to make at home, I did it in 3.5 hours. It was tight, but I did it. I had a sewing machine issue on the day and had to have it replaced, which cost me 15 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's the difference between a dodgy collar and the trim I planned to put on the jacket. I would say that was my fault. The machine broke and it was changed as quickly as possible. But this is the bit, Ting. Also, regarding the time frame for made to measure, it legally has to be that because children are not allowed to be on the site any longer than 4 hours. So there we are. So, which makes complete sense. Now we know that. Cheers, Dan, for that.
Well, it makes sense, but it just then also, if they can only be on set for 3.5 hours or 4 hours or whatever it was, then why aren't they on set on day one where they can film them and measure them and then bring them back on day two, and then the sewers can still have 5 hours because they're not sat there the whole time, are they? So look at how perhaps if you want people to be ambitious and have that, and look at how that can be managed a bit more, bearing in mind that they are, obviously regulated. I mean, gone are the Victorian days where we'd have sent them up a chimney. But they coped.
He says there at the end, I really enjoyed listening to you as the series has gone on. So isn't that nice? Wonderful. It's lovely when we hear from a bee. I don't know what the rules are with them commenting when they're in it. Most tend to stay clear, but Dan, that was lovely. Yes, it was wonderful what you brought to the show over those 6 weeks for sure. Now, last week we were moaning a lot because of Kids Week. And no slipper was thrown.
Well,
Margaret,
they were. You just didn't put them on the screen, did you? You were too busy with your pen.
Margaret went transformation challenge, slipper alone. And then people were going, Sue says slippers. Where are the slippers? Did you forget to throw them?
It's all his fault. No, which way have I got to go that way?
Oh, yeah, that's
his
it.
Fault.
Crazy.
He's the one with his finger on the button.
Maybe you were so emotionally challenged with tears in your eyes, so the time constraints, Kaz's challenges, Gainer's beautiful snowdrop dress, and Dan's ambitious ringmaster's costume, you've got to throw them. Pretty much. And then this one from Neil. Great episode, but where were the slippers?
I was throwing slippers. You didn't. I
think I just got too angry and didn't press any of the buttons. He says, were there too many to throw?
Well, there was that as well.
Great to see a contestant comment on the show. Just illustrates how popular your natter is growing. I wonder if Dan would consider joining you both as a guest for some inside scoops. Absolutely right about Children's Week. It's my least favourite. How many fancy dress outfits do we need to see? That is true. Maybe we need something that's where they're in formal wear for once. Have we seen that with Kids Week? Or is it tends to be always?
I suppose formal wear would be very samey though, wouldn't it? There's, it's like adult clothing. You don't get a lot of variety, do you?
Who is left? So there we are, week 7, down to our final 6 before the quarterfinals next week. Kaz Gaynor, Kit, Orla, Stuart and Yasmin. And before we go any further, Ting, it has been announced on, I can't remember whether it was Kit's, which platform it was of Kit's. But as we go through today, he has now since said they want to use the pronoun of they, them. So we'll do our best when we talk about Kit. I'm notoriously rubbish at this, and I'll still keep. I try, and I'm still putting in he without even realising. Like last week, Ting, when I found out, and I posted, we'll be using they, them from there on.
Oh,
I still put he in the same sentence. I went, as of now, he will be using their, them pronouns. Right. And I was doing my best, but we will do our best with that today. So here we go. The pattern challenge then. It's art week, so we were expecting art themes challenges. We had to make a baby doll dress inspired by artist Grayson Perry in 4.5 hours. It would need puff balloon sleeves, gathering at the waist, and a large collar with frill. Patrick said, also, this dress is about identity, so choose fabric that expresses yours. Well, this was one half of a make, wasn't it, Ting?
Well, I mean, I know we always go on about things like timings and so on. And 4.5 hours is, kind of standard for most challenges. 4.5, 5 hours sometimes for a made to measure if it's a bit more complicated. Um, but there was so much gathering here that I
Mm.
just wonder whether that was too much to ask them to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, we saw finished things,
We did.
and there were issues along the way, and they were pulled up on not pulling out their gathering stitches and everything. But then there was so much
Yeah.
gathering to do, and it had to be gathering and not pleats, that I just wonder whether that was a bit too
Yeah.
ambitious on the part of the sewing bee to ask them to make that. I love the concept, and it's good that we have something that they probably haven't sewn in that way before, but the amount they had to do for that,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, I say it wasn't difficult sewing. In theory, it wasn't difficult sewing, but the time to do all those gathers, it
yeah.
was. I mean, they took nearly half the time just to do the collar.
Well, indeed. How many of the gathers in there? I think Stuart pointed out at one point how long that piece of fabric was for it to be gathered down to those beautiful ruffles. I have to confess, like Gaynor said, I've never heard of him. So clearly,
Oh,
and I taught art.
oh, right, okay.
So I've got a picture here of him actually as
I
where
don't
is
know how you haven't
that?
heard of him, but
Oh
okay.
no, and that's his alter ego Claire in that baby doll dress there.
To be fair, I've never seen him in anything else. He's normally got in a baby doll dress.
But it was a huge challenge. The animation alone, I thought, oh my god, this is going to take up half the program when they show you how it's made.
Yeah.
But we did get them finished. So again, that's got to say all credit to the sewers. Now, the example had a contrast collar. I was amazed that only one person went for the contrast colour. They all went for the same fabric.
Yeah.
Let's get the picture
Because
up, and I can show you.
you messaged me and said, what would I do? And I said I'd go contrast, because to me it's a wacky dress. So
Absolutely.
if you've got those fabrics that we can see there, why wouldn't you then pick something out to sit on top
Yeah.
and really contrast it?
Well, you can't see the beautiful collar, and when we
No,
looked at
I
that,
feel that that's the
when we look at
thing.
that, that's beautiful, isn't it? But
Yeah.
there, it just all blends in. It was just Gaynor that went with the contrasting collar there. But we had 6 finished makes, which is amazing.
Well, it
Considering
is for what it
how
is as well. I still
absolutely.
feel that another half an hour they would have, perhaps given those people who were a bit off or a bit squiffy, a bit more time. But then we say that every week. There'll always be another half
We
hour.
do, and I think Gaynor was at one point going, "Oh, I'm rushing now. I'm making all sorts of shortcuts." I'm like, "Oh, I'm liking the sound of this." So she knows how important it is to get it finished. So was making sacrifices along the way, but she was always up against it. And I think the let's go to Gaynors. This one was going to be the one that caught her out. She was the only one that had kind of that gap there on her collar.
Right. So,
Oh,
so we had Placket Gate last week.
oh, okay. Yeah, we did.
So, have you got the picture of them holding the pattern that we started with a
I
couple of minutes
have.
ago?
Yeah.
Right. Look at the picture at the neckline.
Oh my God, you are so right. Let's make that really, really big. Oh my God.
So on that
Oh,
pattern,
well, it
it
kind of.
doesn't join at the middle at the front. Yet it was so important that it joined at the middle, and everyone apart from Gaynor did
In,
manage to pull it almost in. But that is not joined at the front.
it's the frills probably make it almost join, but I think you're right. There might still even be a gap there. I can't get it any bigger than that, but yes, there probably
No,
still
but you can
is.
see from the
Yeah,
flat white collar without the. I know you can't quite make out the ruffles, but that's far too far
yeah,
apart to say, well, it's just the
yeah.
ruffles. But that again, is there something there with the pattern and
Yeah,
You
she's not
know,
far off when you look at it like that then, is she?
that looks like the pattern.
Yeah.
But then equally, the others did manage to get it. But then have they done it by squishing it at the back? And because it was two separate collar
That's a
pieces.
good
It
point.
wasn't one round collar.
Let's have a look at
So
Kaz's close up. Ooh, have we got one that's front on? Let's have a look at Kit's.
I really should warn you of this, shouldn't I, before the show?
Oh no, there's Kit's close. Oh yeah, that is closer. And Orla's. Oh no, they are. That's how it. Yes, it is. That's better. That looks perfect, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but even on that picture, although we can't quite make out the ruffles, it's still not that close on the picture, on the pattern.
But good
So,
spot.
you
Good
know,
spot.
you know, we're getting these little things that then people are being beaten up about over. Whereas, if you look at that picture, you'd go, well, I'm doing the right thing until it's up there and they start going, well, hang on a minute, it's not right.
I'm liking as we're watching. Well, I say I like. I don't know now. No, I'm thinking of it out loud. I'm finding that in yesterday's episode, there were lots of foreshadowing. So someone would say, like, classic one was Stuart. He went, because I've written it down, is that a side seam? Oh, is that relevant? And I think I then texted you straight away and said, he's gonna have that messed up.
I mean,
and that was the case. So I was a bit annoyed then.
That was a little bit unforgivable because you wouldn't put a seam right. If you've only got two seams, and which you have because you've sewn a back and a front together,
why would you put it?
You would not put that down the front of your dress.
I know. That is a bit odd.
I feel for him because he probably doesn't make dresses. To be fair, I wouldn't make dresses, but at the same time, I mean, that was quite a basic thing. I think, if he'd spun it round and done it and it was just a little bit off on the side seam,
yes, like Orla's,
you'd go, oh, it's not quite right, but to have it run right down the center, that was a bit unforgivable, really.
Yeah, it's for someone of his skill and expertise with
but it's a time
stuff.
issue because they were all in the same boat where they'd taken nearly an hour and a half, 2 hours to do the collar and the first part of the bodice, and they were literally throwing their skirts on and running it round, which the skirt had to be gathered and not pleated again and all of that. They were doing all of that in the last half hour when you're on a time limit again. And, we've sat here plenty of times saying, on an ordinary day, you would have stopped, had a cuppa, then you'd have gone and pinned it all and made sure that it was all in the right place and everything like that. And we saw with his made to measure, he had pins and clips and everything everywhere. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's doing in that respect. But I think that was a time thing more than a I don't know what I'm doing thing.
But the foreshadowing there just made us go, he's going to be at the bottom now, isn't he? So I was getting a bit frustrated with that by the end. What do you think of the fabric, though, in this haberdashery? Good hell.
I mean, I think they're putting stuff in. Like, this stuff is very arty type fabric. I can't remember. I know we don't get a full look at it, but I don't remember seeing this stuff sort of lying around when they've gone and done other stuff as well. So they obviously bring stuff in.
Yeah.
And they have to have enough on a bolt should, two people want to do it as well. So
because we had some amazing fabric there. I loved the design of Kaz's and where's Yasmin's? Yasmin's fabric was fabulous too.
I'm not a fan of busy fabric as it is anyway, and the only reason they've got away with it this week is Art Week. But it would have been quite nice, like we even saw with Grayson's picture, to actually see it in blocked colour.
Yeah.
You could have had a block skirt and bodice. The sleeves could have been a different colour. The neckline and the ruffle, the frill on the neckline could have been different, solid colours. And you could have still made something really interesting. But they wanted them to pick one of these kind of what I would call gaudy fabrics.
Yasmin came first. Let's have a close look at that's the long shot. Look at that collar.
I mean, that was well deserved. Absolutely time that she got something like that.
And then the back was exquisite. Look at those, all that gathering there. Absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, well done. That was her first pattern challenge to win. So we've got Yasmin first, Kit second. It was close, I think, between those two. And at the other end, it was Gaynor and Stewart. Gaynor fifth and Stewart sixth. So we go into the transformation challenge, which we know you all love. They were given 90 minutes to turn painters' clothes, that could have been smocks, aprons, and overalls, into an asymmetric garment. And then Esme goes, "Oh, I want you to think about where you put the paint marks."
Right.
And it was, I was like, oh, well, I was a bit cynical because I said, do you think they were real painters' garments? Because some of the paint on there looked too stylized. They looked really
did a little bit.
They looked really cool dungarees with the pink on or the pink splatter on the grey. But a challenge.
I get what they're saying and everything, and even if they are, I mean, some of them will have been real painters' smocks and everything, judging by some of it that was on there. But if they were genuinely real painter smocks and you had an evening do to go out to, they'd stink. They'd stink because you sit there painting in them all day. You're getting your terps down them. You're getting your paint all over them. It'd stink. And you couldn't put it through the wash because you put it through the wash and most of the paint had come out. So while I want to say well done, they managed to find something to put in there for the transformation challenge, you wouldn't do it because you'd go out smelling like an old sock.
But I suppose the idea for Art Week is clever, but it was going to all come down to who picked the brightest clothes with the brightest paints, because again, some of them I felt got a little bit penalised because they didn't have bright paint splodges on. Well, that's just the luck of it. So I felt for Stuart again for this.
I'm going to put it out there. They seem to have it for Stuart all episodes.
Yeah.
I didn't feel he could do anything right. I mean, don't get me wrong. The seams in that dress were wrong. And therefore, there was nothing you could do about that. But this, Patrick did say that it was very well structured and he quite liked the silhouette and, of Stuart's one. Yeah. And he tried to put the paint at the top so that when he put the pleats in and everything like that, I don't know whether putting the pleats in started to hide some of that. But equally, it was a dark top. Yeah. So even though, I mean, you can just about make out from this distance that there were reds and yellows and everything, it was on a dark canvas. So trying to see any of those colours anyway. So then you have to ask your question, well, did he make an asymmetric garment out of what he was given? And yes, he did. And he made a good silhouette with that because the way he'd used the cuff and everything for the armhole and everything. So I feel that they were a bit harsh on him because it was either, do you want an asymmetric garment or do you want the paint?
Especially as it seemed so similar in a way to Kit's. Kit had grey with not too many a brighter splodge on it, but Kit perhaps had been more expressive with the way he used the cloth. He still had the idea with the shoulder bit, but then you've got some of that pocket or dungarees thing going on. So did that make it different? But they were kind of similar.
Yeah.
Just felt...
I mean,
Stuart got penalised more.
If I'd have put kits on, I'd have been walking down the street with, half a breast hanging out.
Yeah, and they've picked up on
I'm going for, really.
They've picked up on that before, though, with other numbers about perhaps not being so decent.
I know,
but that was glossed over.
I mean, obviously, this is fitted on a male mannequin, whereas Stuart's is on a female mannequin. So you'd argue, but then that still brings back that argument of still common decency, does it? And and would you be putting that on and with everything possibly poking out left, right, and centre?
Do you want to see a close up of me? But what about Orla's garment? That to me was just wonderful.
I liked that. Yeah, I loved that.
It really did.
I think she'd done well with but I mean, she was lucky because there was a lot of paint on there anyway. But she'd done what Stuart had done, which is put pleats in. It's just that hers, okay, maybe you could argue that he didn't do it quite well enough, but hers highlighted some of that paint, but she'd still pleated most of it away. I I still, that's when it gets me with the judging is that they'll talk about one and then they'll bring on another one, and then everything they've said was wrong with the first one is now wonderful in the second one.
Indeed, felt that was going on here. Gaynors, who was coming, she did seem to be a bit stressed during this one as well. She couldn't really work out what to do. She was going to create the A-line look by cutting up, and then she chose not to do that. But actually, when you look at it, I couldn't get a very good pic, sorry. But when you look at it, you think, why didn't she just hack up more to the left leg to make it more revealing?
I would have just slashed it and created that asymmetry. At this point, I did think, with Gaynor, I was like,
there we go.
I know we'd had Stewart and Gaynor in the bottom of the first one, and then with this, I didn't think it met the brief. So it was just kind of like, is Gaynor really and truly in trouble? And we know last week she struggled a bit as well. So at this point, I was kind of like, okay, maybe it's Gaynor that's going home.
Yeah. It certainly felt like that, because Stewart was now fifth. So you're looking at the bottom two there on the far right. Stewart was fifth, Gaynor sixth, and they put Orla top, which was absolutely rightly so. So there we are now going into the made to measure, knowing it's going to be Stewart or Gaynor. Simple as that, isn't it? And they were quite clear. I mean,
unless someone royally messed up, it was kind of a two-horse race, I felt, for the bottom there.
And obviously, we know the discussion that we had last week. It was going to come down to the actual make, and I think Gaynor it came across that she was conscious of the fact they were probably going to want something more elaborate. But I still felt that she was like, but I will sew what I can sew. She was standing by her what she does best, I think. And that must be hard going into that, knowing that, it's all going to come down to that last make. So let's go into the made to measure. We'll go through each of them, all six, alphabetically. They had to create an outfit inspired by pop art. Well, you know what we're like with inspired rounds. It's how are you going to judge? And I felt, we'll come to Stewart later, but you can be inspired by literally the bright colours of Andy Warhol and make something completely different. It was going to be a hard one to judge this, wasn't it?
Yeah, unless you actually took something that had already kind of been done in the pop art inspired fabric, dressmaking world. It was always, it's how can you get your story across that you're right.
Yeah. And I feel like saying to anyone who wants to go on the sewing bee, just do something really obvious, just so you don't fall foul of it. But when you look at Kaz, I had to rewatch Kaz's. Was Kaz's inspiration just the bright, bold colours of pop art? Because I couldn't work out. I know she said the wonderful story about the sew on, the little where you cut it out and you fold it over with the tags. Yeah. But I didn't know what the specific reference was to pop art. But I think it was just bright, bold colours. But that I don't know whether that's. But then, if that's your inspiration, you can't judge that. You can't argue that, can you?
No. I think the paper dress element of it, because that's what the tags were when you used to have those little paper dolls in the back of. I remember my sister having them in the back of a Cindy magazine or whatever it was, and you'd cut them out, and then you'd cut the dresses out, and you'd have to make sure which.
Yeah.
I remember my sister was very good at cutting the tabs off, and then would wonder why the dress wouldn't stay on the doll. So that was always quite funny. But I get that and what she was trying to do there. But then it was a very obviously pop art type shape. But then I didn't understand why the tabs were on the hip bits there. I understood the shoulders.
Yeah.
But if this was the paper doll, those tabs would have done nothing to hold that onto the paper doll. I just felt that, she'd done well with the shoulder ones. I just felt that I didn't get the bottom half of it in that respect.
But I felt like it's great, Kaz. It keeps you safe. You just say, I'm inspired by the bright colours of pop art. And then the judges can't they can't hang you for dry on that, can they? Whereas poor old Stuart, as soon as he then went and said, "Oh, well, I was going to do something on Keith Haring," and then not, he's now in. Oh, is that pop art? And
Yeah,
that's what ended up happening, wasn't it?
yeah.
Anyway, let's go through alphabetically. Gainers.
I,
Her only reference
I,
that she had was Andy Warhol. So this was her. This was her take on Andy Warhol.
but this is it, isn't it? It's about the inspired bit again, because to me, I didn't think this was good enough. And
No, but who are we to judge what she's inspired by? That's it, isn't it?
well, yeah, but they're putting it in front of us as an entertainment show where we're looking at all of the contestants the same as the judges
Yeah.
are. And, while I can try and see where Kaz was coming from, this doesn't scream Andy Warhol. And also, it wasn't enough. Those shapes needed to be bigger, or they needed to be more placed differently. They needed to have different colors. Those colors aren't pop art colors. There wasn't enough there. And I know we've only looked at these first two. I did feel, and as much as Gaynor is a brilliant sewer, we had the discussion last week. Quite rightly, Dan didn't finish what he wanted to do. We now know that there were some issues behind the scenes with that. And we said, she chose something very safe last week, but had sewn it very well. It is a sewing competition, blah, 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 blah. At what point do you say that Gaynor is not being ambitious? She can sew. We can all agree that she can sew. Okay. But in this competition where you're now being asked to design effectively the made to measures.
Yes.
You're not going out and buying standard patterns.
No.
You're buying a standard pattern that you are then adapting. Now, if Gaynor, and there's nothing wrong with what Gaynor does, because what she sews brilliantly. She can follow a pattern. We saw it with, the baby doll dress and in previous weeks as well. But at what point is the ambitious bit more important than the sewing bit? And not more important as in that it's falling apart and there's holes in it, because that's not right either. But, she can sew the best. I mean, this is a simple pattern with some cutouts in.
But if there's no mention about ambitiousness in the assessment, why is that?
We've always had a problem.
Why does it have to come down to being ambitious for? Why is that even a thing?
Well, but my point is, she was obviously trying to be ambitious here. She's put the boning in the bottom.
Yeah.
And, she's looked at this simple pattern and gone, oh, I'm going to put these cutouts in because I've had a look and, that's something I've seen maybe. And I get that, but that's not enough for that dress. They're lost. That triangle and those circles are lost. And there was nothing on the back. They needed to be bigger, bolder. They needed to be brighter colours. And to me, that was part of the brief.
To fill that criteria, yes, for pop art. Yeah. You could argue, are they the Campbell soup colours?
No, they're not. Because Campbell soup is white and
white
red.
And red. Okay.
And that's mustard and orange.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even orange. It's not red. So, it's that thing where you kind of go, she is a brilliant sewer, but if we take her all the way through to the final, is she just going to do an A-line dress or a maxi dress from a basic pattern, which she will be able to sew
Absolutely.
perfectly?
Yeah. Well, she said it. She said, she mentioned when they were talking with her, she said it may be simple. She is aware the judges were thinking it may be simple. But what I liked about her, she then said, but I can do this in the time. And that is a big thing for me. So that she literally still is analysing, right, if I've got to do this in 5 hours, can I do it in 5 hours? I can. But she maybe missed the design off. But this is where our discussion is. Is it about design, like Project Runway, or actually is it about just sewing a dress?
I think it has to be both, but I think the made to measure is leaning more into your ability to design and adapt.
I think you're right.
Not just follow and sew.
But
because that's what the first challenge is for. The first challenge is, can you follow a pattern?
Okay. Yeah.
This is, can you design and adapt and make it to fit your model,
Yeah.
because it ultimately, as we've said it before, it is the made to measure challenge. So that's got to be part of it as well. And they kind of got away with that this week because, I mean, not like it didn't matter, but the pop art stuff was oversized and everything. So you could have done, when we look at kits in a moment, that was oversized. It didn't fit. It wasn't made to measure. It wasn't a fitted dress.
Like Kaz's,
But
yeah,
that was
yeah.
also the style of pop art.
Yeah,
So, there are ways which you can make it work for you. Choose the bolder
yeah.
colors, be more adventurous with those cutouts, make it more oversized. You should put the boning in the bottom of the skirt. That could have had a way bigger skirt on the bottom,
Yeah.
like the baby doll. That would have then just made it kind of fit a bit more.
You're right. You're right. Certainly an interesting discussion. If you look at that now, that silhouette, and let's move on to kits because it's just exaggerated, isn't it? So kits is there. There we go. It's from that point of view and the colours.
I mean,
It's
don't get me wrong, it was fitted around the bust and across the shoulders, and it had to,
yeah.
and that's the made to measure bit. But the rest of that is the
It's
volume and the blocking that's there. So, that's what you should be doing.
and then look at the risk they took as well, going for crepe paper. Played around with pop art being fast art and started talking about his concept, their concept. It's all there, isn't it?
It is, but I don't know if I'd wanted to have gone on there and sewn with paper,
Oh,
even though it was, interfacing and everything. Um, they were just lucky that nothing really went wrong, because one catch and that could have ripped.
absolutely. But is this what we were just discussing with Gainer? Is this the idea of made to measure with a special design element to be that extra one step ahead of everyone else? Because right, let's do it with crepe paper. You're going to win
Well, I think
you're going to win the judges over because you're seen as ambitious.
I think that's it. This is where you have to take that risk. And as
Yeah.
long as you've practiced this and know you can do it in 4 hours or whatever it was, 4.5 hours for this one, 5 hours. If you've practiced it, I think that you can be more confident.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, these are quite large sections as well. They're not tiny panels all over the place. So that helps as well. But if you can do it, then that's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be safe. And I felt that, and again, we haven't quite got to Stuart's yet. Stuart's was very involved a lot of sewing. Yes, there was a couple of things that weren't quite right, but there was ambition
Yeah.
and there was pushing it there,
I
which I didn't feel was with Gainers.
No, when I look at that now, I can see pop art. I can see the idea of, well, how I interpret it, Liechtenstein with the cartoon look, with the dots and the comic book style with the black lines separating them. It is there. It does slap you in the face, doesn't it? That's pop art.
Oh, absolutely.
Moving on next to down alphabetically, we've got Orla's, which was fun. Some epicness going on here with those trousers, her own printed trousers with her lips on it, the flares into the jacket, and then let's show you the back too. If I push the right button there. A lot going on.
I think it was, a well-designed piece. Again, I know the execution around the collar and the zip wasn't quite there. And again, I would imagine Orla probably has practiced it. But it is just one of those things on the day, a bit like we've had from Dan earlier. If something was going on with a machine, if her bobbins ran out or whatever, all of those things just add in that bit of time. And you are up against the clock. There is no like, oh, well, you've got 5 hours, but it doesn't matter if you have 5.5. They're like going right onto your mannequins, onto your models, etc. So I think actually I was really impressed with this, even though the collar was a bit squiffy. The overall design was really good.
As you said, that design, that concept is there. Then you got Stuart's, which as soon as I started seeing all that fabric being interfaced, you can see the look. You can see the fabric against the interfacing. It gives that crumpled look. And you'd see that from a distance, and
Well,
my heart
it's
just
more
felt for him.
structured, isn't it?
Yeah, but it was so structured. It then lost its. Well, there was obviously no flow because there was no drape there
I
at
think
all.
well, yeah, but I don't think that was the problem because if you go to the pop art stuff again, if you look at kits, if you look at the baby doll, they all and even the trousers that we've just seen, and even Gainer's one, they all had the boning in or
Yeah,
something in there
true.
because it's about that structure. So he decided, I don't have a problem with him deciding to use the interfacing to get that. I mean, you could have used something like scuba, as much as I hate that. But he was trying to use the fabric so that it held its shape, because that's that kind of blocky movement. What I feel was the issue here, which Patrick kind of alluded to as well, this should have been done in solid color.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where it lost it a bit
It would have more
because
impact.
it
Quoting against me, yeah.
this doesn't scream color
No.
wise. I think the silhouette is very appropriate, and like I said, the fabric being holding its shape. But the colors and the way that I mean, I love the fact that he's obviously used the same range. You've got the blue, the green, the yellow, the orange, and the red, all of the same pattern in a different color. But pop art was blocked color, really. And it was colors that clash put together. Think of the Marilyn
Yeah,
Monroe
yeah. The
picture where you've got
faces.
all the different neons and
Yeah,
everything on it. So you didn't have to have a smooth color palette, but I think it needed the black, which he readily admitted he was leaving out,
yeah.
and it needed to be a solid color. But you know, the amount of work that went into this, and this is where the whole Gaynor versus Stewart thing kind of kicks in. The amount of work and the design and the silhouette of this, do you go, well, he was trying, it just didn't quite get the mark, whereas Gaynor's was just not that ambitious, and while it may have been sewn up perfectly, is that ultimately where we want to go? Especially because, and again, I can't dispute Dan going home last week, but we had a similar issue where she's done something very simple, very well, but is that what you want for the made to measure? And the problem is, last week and this week, we've got an inspired by, which makes it even harder for you then to
Yes.
pin on and say, well, actually, you haven't done enough here, when Gaynor can turn around and go, well, I was inspired by X, Y, Z, and I've
Absolutely.
done exactly that.
Yeah. And as soon as they put into the edit where he said he dropped those black lines, and they even cut to a picture of what the inspiration was, those classic cartoon figurines with the
Yeah,
black
but
lines in
the
between.
thing was,
We just
they were
knew
all
he was going to
solid
go.
colours.
That was what they were going to use.
But they were all solid colours.
Yeah.
If he was saying that was his inspiration, then it should have been solid colours with the black lines. And then if he'd have used solid colours,
That might have got him
and then even left
through.
the black lines out because he didn't think he'd have enough time,
Yeah.
I feel he would have been in a better position.
To argue, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let's finish with Yasmin's.
I really liked the simplicity of this.
So clever.
Because again, it's the pop art thing
Yeah.
of not being too busy.
Really clever. What do you think about the critique about the white dress underneath being a different colour other than white?
It's difficult because to me, the garment was the cape. And so she's done a very simple white shift dress to show off the cape. So I wasn't really looking, and you don't really look at the white dress
I'm looking
because
at
it's
the
underneath
cape.
there.
Yeah.
You're looking at the cape, and that's what it is. Should it have been a cream dress? I mean, it's not white, really, is it? It's an off-white anyway, an ivory. But I don't know because the dress wasn't the main. If she'd come along and she'd swung that cape off as part of the reveal, and there was something underneath, then I could understand the criticism. But I feel that what she did was make the cape as the pop art bit, and then a simple shift dress underneath. Just because you can't have the model walk down in her underwear and just a cape.
Yeah. Black. Would that have made it
that would
pop
have been
even
too
more?
harsh.
Okay. Oh, let us know, viewers, what you think about it. Or is
I
it
mean,
supposed to
you could have,
disappear? The white does
you,
disappear, doesn't it? I'm not looking at it at all. Are you?
or maybe you just needed to outline it in black. Use like she's done with the eye and the lips. Maybe she'd
Oh,
put a black band round the bottom,
yes.
or even like, I mean, it's not really pop art, but it's modern art, isn't it? That Mondrian where you have the blocks with the black and the
Yes. Yeah,
white and
yeah.
the
Yeah.
rectangles. Something like that
Yeah.
in that dress. But
I know
then
what.
you'd have spent all the time making the dress.
Yeah. And that defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It was an outfit inspired by pop art, and I think it's there. But yes, I think hemming it with black would have looked fabulous. Okay, so
And you've
there
got
we.
to remember as well that she had accidentally cut the chin off, which is why it didn't go round like
Yeah.
it did, because she didn't leave enough um, uh, seam allowance. And she didn't get the fastening on. So even with making a basic white or ivory dress, the cape was still technically unfinished. So, she couldn't have done a lot more to that dress because she'd have run out of time completely.
Okay, so we are heading into saying goodbye to someone and giving Garment of the Week. Let's talk about Garment of the Week first. Did you have an inkling of Garment of the Week? Were you going, ooh, is it going to be Yasmin's dress from round one? Or is it going to be Kit?
It's very rare that they go for something from round one
Yeah, yeah,
with that. So I, I, I don't think there was anything because of the nature of kits. I don't think that there was anything else that you could have held up to it
yeah.
because of it is very blocky and pop art as it is straight away, and of course it was made out of paper.
Paper.
And I think Kaz's the trouble with Kaz is that because they did actually say that, and I was like, I'd be surprised if they gave it to Kaz because those tabs were unfinished. They were not sewn very well. And part of me was like, while I understand and quite like Kaz's, if they gave it to her
Yeah,
and
that
then
would
turn around
be.
and say that Gaynor had to go home when
Oh,
Gaynor can sew so much
yeah,
better, I think there would have been slippers flying galore. I think Kit hit the mark,
yeah,
and therefore I don't think you could have given it to anyone else because everyone else there was something. Gaynor's was too bland. Stewart's didn't really work with those colours. Even Orla's was brilliant, but the collar was off. Yasmin's wasn't quite finished, and they had a problem with the white dress, even though that wasn't really the garment. So then you're kind of left. Well, and it sounds terrible to say this, but then who are you left with?
yeah,
Who's left to be garment of the week? But that's because even though technically Kit's was unfinished because they didn't put the speech bubbles on, they
yeah.
turned it into the handbag thing, which I didn't like anyway. I didn't think the speech bubbles would have worked, but you know who else would you have given it to based on what else had happened in all of those other frocks?
Well, it's their first Garment of the Week. They've had week 1, week 2, week 4, week 5, week 6 winning the pattern challenge. Really kind of unstoppable. Do we think we're going to be seeing Kit in the final? Because there doesn't seem
I
to be anything that's phased them so far.
I wouldn't surprise me if they were. I think I said last week, or whether I said to you offline, we found out that Kit has a maths degree or something with a maths degree, and I think that has helped mathematically with patterns, which is why I think they've had so much success in that
Yeah.
first round. Um, and I wouldn't say it's very telling, but this is the first time they've had Garment of the Week on the Made to Measure, which shows you that everyone else in this competition is a really good sewer.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
if they were unstoppable, then we'd be seeing the Made to Measure and the Pattern Challenge and possibly
Agreed. Yeah.
the transformation stuff constantly there, and
Yeah.
and we haven't.
You can, and that's why they choose these rounds. You can see where the sewers' skills and where they are more comfortable and where they succeed. Okay, so we've got to say goodbye to someone. It was going to be down to Stuart and Gaynor, and we had to say goodbye to Stuart. which is sad, but
There was
I can
still
see it.
yes. I did think after last week, and I know we shouldn't really take last week into account, but that would have been playing on my mind to then send Gaynor home. I also feel that we haven't really seen him
I know,
that much.
I know.
Normally, you kind of in the run up, because obviously this is filmed ages ago, you kind of accept that if they're not really in the edit in the first couple of episodes, then they're not going home because you kind of get to know them.
Yeah,
And then even in the episode that they go home, they tend to feature a little bit more heavily because they want to be sent home. It's all edited after the event. It's not done as it goes along. But I just didn't feel that we did get to know Stuart that well.
completely
Even in
agree.
tonight's episode, last night's episode, there still didn't feel like he had a disproportionate amount of time, just so we could give him a fond farewell, so to speak.
I and we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks too. I just have always felt, and it's nothing against the judges because it's amazing how a story can change in an edit, but I feel the edit has glossed over many of his makes. I think some
Mm,
of those makes have been architectural design
yeah,
stunners. Yet whether because in the edit they've cut there was one edit, I can't remember which one it was, whether it was last week or the week before, in his made to measure, I think he might got like about 5 seconds worth of judging, and it was cut
yeah.
out, ready to move on to the next one. It just felt in the edit he got uh, cut down and bits
But
cut out, and I know
as I
that's
said
hard.
earlier, it felt like the edit this week also he could do nothing right. It
Yeah,
seemed every time they spoke about him, it was how bad he was. And I'm
yeah,
like, hang on a minute. We're 6, 7 weeks in. He's made it this far.
yeah.
He's not that bad.
uh,
And he's
uh,
not. He's actually a really good sewer. He's done
Stunning.
some really good work. I just felt that he wasn't given the time
Yeah.
that
And
he probably deserved.
those makes early on where we had the knots going through the centre that we were seeing on the D&G Alta runways, and then
Yeah.
the shirt sleeves at the back. So many clever ideas may have been overlooked, but Stuart, we haven't overlooked them. We've noticed it right from the very beginning. Something else we always noticed too was your ties, your cool dress sense. And yes, it had to be the knitted tank top too. You look
Yeah.
glorious. We loved watching you. You were really fabulous to watch and see. So you created some amazing makes there.
I
So
still think I still think that there's, we've had, well, we've got rid of. Well, I was going to say we've got rid of all the men, but I mean technically we have if you're going by our new definitions. Um, but we haven't had a men's week, and I just feel that we've said
yeah,
in previous ones how you get these men come onto the sewing bee, and I know some of them will sew for their children, their daughters, and things like that. But the majority of men, if you're a sewer, you are probably making your own clothes.
yeah,
And they've gone in and made dresses and skirts and blouses and everything else like that, when that's probably not what they
yeah.
make. And certainly someone like Stuart as well. And I just feel that there's an argument to have a men's week slightly earlier in the competition. I mean, I don't know if there is one coming up or whatever. And I know there has been a bit of freedom because we've had in some of the made to measures, they've been able to choose their model and have, and we've had some
Yeah.
people have male models and somehow it's not been that restrained in some of those. But I just feel sometimes that the men get a hard deal because everything is nearly all female orientated in the makes.
It's a very good point because the production company, are trying to be as diverse and inclusive as possible with models, with colour, with ethnicity and everything. So where are the men's patterns? Where is
Yeah.
that? Where is
And
the pattern
we've said that
challenge?
there are problems in that there are not masses, but then there are not masses of women's pattern. A women wear a skirt and they wear a blouse and they wear fitted trousers and things like that. There are different varieties of shirts and jackets and, shorts and trousers, 3/4 length trousers. There's all different things that you could do for men. And I know they've done various things. We know we've had waistcoats before and stuff like that. But, make a dress shirt even where you've
Yeah.
got the double cuffs and everything like that, just to make it a little bit different, but equally to give some familiarity, because a lot of women will sew for their husbands, so it's not like you're probably not discriminating them in the same way. Whereas if it was me, I would have only made stuff for myself. I wouldn't have made stuff, for anything
Oh,
else. So
yeah. Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, it'd be nice. Yeah, nice to see. Have they made anything for the gym yet? I've not seen that.
yeah,
That could
well, we
be.
had athleisure and
Oh,
activewear.
oh
We've had
God,
all of
yeah.
that,
All
haven't
right,
we?
we'll forget about that. We'll skip on there. Well, Ting, I don't think there were any slippers thrown there at all.
Well,
We didn't
well, I
really.
think there's probably hovering around in the odd place, but
But then, like I say, we've said it's good. We're not always about throwing them and being moaning. It's good to. It means they're doing well. The production company have got a great series. We said that right from the beginning. It's just that I know you viewers like to you like it when he gets angry.
I'm sure we'll be told where they should have been thrown.
Absolutely. Well, we're down to the final things now: quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the final three. Three left. Where has that time gone? We've got Yasmin, we've got Kit, we've got Kaz, we've got Orla, and we've got Gaynor left. And then next week is something like, what did I say? Is it movie week? They're going to the cinema or doing something like that. So
So another inspired by the challenge, no doubt.
no, you love it. They're doing it purposely just for us, aren't they? We love reading your comments, so many of them. Lovely to keep having you back watching the show. It has been a cracking series for sure. And I know you've now all got your favourites. So many of you said a few weeks back you didn't mind any of them. And that was when we had 7 left. You were saying you could have any of the 7. But it's going to be good fun seeing the quarterfinals now. So see you next week for week 8, the quarterfinals. Cheers, Ting. Thank you. See ya. Bye.
Bye.